Nelson Mandela is a young man in South Africa fighting for equality.
We are the people of this nation, but we don't have rights.
After he is jailed, he and his wife Winnie become the symbols of anti-apartheid. Together, they change South Africa forever in Mandela.
Hi, I'm Salim.
I'm Brenna.
And I'm Aaron, and today we're here to talk about Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, starring Idris Elba and Naomie Harris. We've all just seen it. Salim, what'd you think?
I was actually really excited about this movie, mainly because it's starring Idris Elba, one of my all-time favorite actors. Finally, he has a role with a lot of meat that he can sink his teeth into. However, because he's so famous, it was hard for me to believe him as Nelson Mandela, especially in the first half of the film, because to me, he just seemed like Idris Elba speaking in a South African accent.
When he's playing a 20-something-year-old Nelson Mandela, it's hard to shake off the very adult presence that Idris Elba has, especially in the thing that he's most famous for, which is Luther.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the problems that do exist in this film are in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to set it up, but it takes too long to set it up.
Yeah.
It's too long to be an effective flashback, but it's also too short to be effective shot as it is.
Yeah, well,
so you have these shoehorned domestic issues and this tiny little family thing just so it can be relevant that he has a son.
It just wanders a little bit. William Nicholson wrote the script. He's written Nell, Gladiator, and most recently Les Mis. So he's a great writer, and I think that the scope of this film is fine, but it's just really hard to pinpoint what I wish the first half had or what it was missing.
And the first half could have been done in flashback. It didn't feel as urgent or as important as the second half.
I guess it just didn't need to be that long.
Exactly.
And it's intriguing because this is directly an adaptation of his memoirs. One of the producers of this film, Mandela specifically told him, because he's a South African, that he wanted him to make this movie, which I enjoyed, and which is why I enjoyed also them really telling us about his idiosyncrasies, the fact that he was a philanderer, because it's not hero worshipping, it's really showing us that he is a man. And it assists for the second half of the film, seeing his arc into this kind of wise revolutionary, going from this passionate revolutionary to this more, centered man.
And that's
peaceful.
Peaceful, exactly.
That's probably the most interesting thing to watch for me. I mean, while he's in prison, how society, and specifically South African society, changes around him to the point where he was imprisoned for something 20-something years beforehand, but then the government is trying to get him out and say, we need you. And I think it all culminates in a scene when he meets the president of South Africa at the time, and his shoe is untied, and a white person gets down on their knee and ties his shoe.
There's a lot of great symbolism in this film. You have that scene, and then you have another scene in the beginning when they show him going through rite of passage with his tribe. And he gets covered in like a clay, and then he goes and washes it off, and washing it off is symbolic of him becoming a man. Later, he's working in the quarries in prison. He gets covered in clay because he's doing manual mining, and then he goes and washes it off. There's a second rite of passage, and there's these little things like that that make it so stunning.
What I think is probably the most interesting character in the whole entire movie, his wife, Winnie, played by Naomie Harris. She starts out as such a meek, cute, young little girl, and they fall in love, and then he goes to prison, and her story is just so fascinating. It's a shame that the movie that came out about Winnie Mandela this year, starring Jennifer Hudson, wasn't very good, because I would have loved to see a whole movie about her.
Her character change is fantastic as well. I mean, as you said, she started off and she's sweet, and this is in the problematic first half, with this super cliche romance between her and
which
Nelson.
I didn't really like at all.
Yeah, like walking through fields in sundresses at sunset.
And all the flashbacks shot with the overexposed sunlight.
Yeah.
But once you get to the end, though, it all of that actually assists in how much more emotional the end of the movie is, I think.
It assists in setting up their relationship.
We are negotiating. We are not fighting a war.
But the people have chosen to fight. Do you want me to betray our people?
Do I betray our people?
You have been away a long time.
What does that mean? I've been away. Does that mean now you can terrorize people?
Our director is Justin Chadwick, whose previous credits include The Other Boleyn Girl and a thick helping of television from England. He's a TV director mostly.
His first film was called The First Grader, which actually took place in Kenya. So it showcases that he has a love for this continent, which you can see on screen because it looks very beautiful.
The directing is a little oversimplified, especially in the first half. We have, when Winnie and Nelson first meet, we have these very cliche, brightly lit, running through the field, romantic shots. The score at times is very heavy-handed, just hammering emotional beats.
But it's fascinating, because these things that we have problems with in the first half are still used in the second half, but because the second half is better, we're okay with them.
Yeah.
The score is far too sweeping in the first half, but it's spot on in the
Yeah,
second
it
half.
hits the emotional beats correctly. It's trying, all of the directorial stuff in the first half is trying to make this film better than it is. Or at least the first
First half.
45 minutes.
Well, no, but like you said, it's setting up, and it's kind of apparent how much of a setup it is. Like
Yeah.
I think you made a great point that it could have been a flashback with all the information
Could've
that
been
they
a
showed.
montage. It
Could have been a
could've been
montage.
something,
yeah.
But again, getting to the end of the movie, I don't know if those scenes weren't there, if it would have been as emotional.
The power of the second half and the fantastic performances more than make up for the problematic first half. So I say, see it.
A bit of a bumpy start, however, the final execution and overall importance make you forget any initial missteps. See it.
I agree with the both of you. It's not a perfect film, but the performances, and in particular Naomie Harris, are simply fantastic. So I also say, see it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers!
Mandela.
To Naomie Harris. I realized that there was really a lot of reallys in that
Really?
really long and really not very good bit I just did.